Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be sharing some of my absolute favorite fantasy romances that feature the enemies to lovers trope. Alright guys, so this was actually a collab video that was put together by Hannah Blackwell, so make sure to check out everyone else's videos linked down in the description below after you finish watching this one. Now specifically, I did fantasy romance that features the enemies to lovers trope just because I feel like it's really hard to find contemporary romances that have actual enemies to lovers. I feel like a lot of time it's like hate to love or just like I don't really like you that much and then you kind of get together. So I did fantasy romance and all of the books on this list I absolutely love and I'm so excited to talk about them. Now if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram and Goodreads, both linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about these enemies to lovers books. Alright, starting off with Manacled by SenLinYu. I have talked about this book in numerous videos, and I'm going to keep talking about it because I am obsessed with this book. It was one of my favorite reads of the year. It is Dramini fanfic, and it has some references to The Handmaid's Tale, and it is just absolutely glorious. It's available on the website Archive of Our Own, so I'll leave all the information down in the description below. But anyway, the story is following Hermione, and it's essentially what would have happened if Voldemort won the war against the Order of the Phoenix and Harry Potter was killed. So Hermione ends up being captured and thrown into isolation where she is deprived of any sort of human interaction, and eventually when she comes out of isolation, she finds out that Lord Voldemort has started a breeding program, and since Hermione is known to be a very powerful witch, he wants to give her to his High Reeve, who is like the general of his armies and his second in command. Well, Hermione finds out right away that the High Reeve is actually Draco Malfoy, and the story goes from there. So obviously we have the enemies to lovers because Hermione and Draco have hated each other since they were 11 years old and met at school. And it's just, I love their romance. It is so angsty and just, it is fantastic. So if you have not picked this book up yet, definitely do so. I listened to this on Spotify. The creator was, I believe, Audiobook Warriors. Just know if you're gonna listen to this via Spotify, there are different narrators throughout. So that was a little jarring when I was listening to it originally, but if you know that going in, it should be totally fine, and I highly, highly recommend. And next up, we have The Savage and the Swan by Ella Fields. So I'm going to be completely honest, it's been a few years since I've read this. However, I do remember that it has nods to both Rumpelstiltskin and the Swan Princess. We are following this Fae princess who is supposed to marry the human prince in order to unite their kingdoms to go up against the Fae that are able to shift into wolves that have been like tormenting their people. So our main character does not want to marry this human prince, and one day she runs away. She gets to this tree where she meets this very handsome and charming stranger. They have an immediate connection. He kind of teaches her like how to fight, how to stand up for herself, and then she ends up moving in with the prince. And now her and the prince, it's kind of contentious. They don't really get along. And then we find out that the charming stranger that our princess had met earlier is actually the king of the wolves, and he kidnaps her, and the story goes from there. And it was pretty good. I think the reason I didn't enjoy this as much as I was expecting, I am not a fan of the male narrator who narrates this book. I have tried other books by him, and for some reason, me and his voice, we do not jive. So I think if I had read this physically, it probably would have been like a 4.5 star. But because I listened to it via audio, it went down to like a 3.75. The world building is a little bit messy, but overall, it was a very whimsical and fun story, and I highly, highly recommend. And next up, I felt like I had to include Shatter by Tahereh Mafi in an enemies to lovers rec video. Even though it's not fantasy romance, it's technically YA dystopian, but it still has those feelings. So this story is following Juliet, and this is a dystopian world she is living in. This evil government body has taken control, and Juliet's touch is actually poisonous, so she's being kept in isolation. So eventually, after years of like slowly feeling like she's going crazy, being deprived of any sort of human interaction, she is released and given over to Aaron Warner, who is one of the leaders of this government faction, and he wants to use Juliet as a weapon. Now, Juliet starts out absolutely repulsed by Aaron Warner and his like lack of humanity, and then things start to shift. in the best possible way, and I absolutely adored the first 3 books in this series. I will say, if you're a little bit older and you think the time has passed for you to read Shatter Me, give it a try. I was super nervous to pick this up knowing it was YA, but honestly, it was so good, and there isn't very much spice. There isn't any spice. It's just kind of implied. It's very closed door, but you're not gonna miss it. I just loved Aaron and Juliet's relationship so much, so highly recommend giving Shatter Me a try. And next up was actually a recent read, and it's the Book of Azrael, and this is by Nicole. So this is an adult fantasy romance. We are following Diana, and when her sister is mortally wounded, she just begs for anyone to come and help save her sister, and who ends up showing up is a demon. So the demon comes and he says to Diana, hey, I will save your sister, but if I do this for you, I'm gonna turn you into a monster and I'm gonna need you to kill everyone that I say, and you're essentially gonna belong to me. Diana, who is absolutely desperate at this point, agrees, and that is where our story kind of starts. So Diana has been a assassin with these incredible abilities for years working for this demon, and eventually the demon tells her that he wants her to locate the Book of Azrael to help the demons kind of like take over the realm. So Diana agrees because she honestly has no choice, and in trying to locate the Book of Azrael, she ends up killing kind of like an angel slash god person who, in killing this person, sets up an alarm that goes to a god named Liam, who then realizes someone is trying to locate the book, goes to the realm that Diana is currently living, and takes her prisoner, and they both now are searching for this book. Diana to give it to a demon, and Liam to try to destroy it, or really just find out if it exists. So I know that it's very confusing. It is very hard to describe everything that goes on in this book. However, I did very much enjoy it, and definitely has those enemies to lover vibes. So Liam absolutely detests Diana with everything in his being because of the monster he believes she is. And then Diana honestly just feels like Liam is judging her without really knowing who she is as a person and her motivations for turning into this monster. So I just love them slowly kind of getting to know each other and falling in love, and it was just a very fun and spicy time. And it has been quite a while since I talked about the Zodiac Academy, which was one of my most beloved series when I first started BookTube. I do still love the series, especially the first few books. However, I feel like the series, it needs to end, so I'm really hoping the next book is actually the last book in the series. Those books just keep being longer and longer, and I just feel like we're losing the story that we started with that I originally really loved. So anyway, if you're unfamiliar with the story of the Zodiac Academy, we are following Darcy and Tori Vega. They are these very poor girls that really only have each other in the world, and they're just trying to survive. And on their 18th birthday, they find out that they are actually Fae royalty, and if they want to gain their inheritance, they have to go to the Zodiac Academy, which is a Fae school where you learn how to use your powers, and you meet other Fae and other different shifters and vampires and every sort of like paranormal creature you can imagine. So they agree, they go to Zodiac Academy, and they find out right away that there are 4 celestial heirs that are already ruling the school and do not want to deal with these 2 girls that are claiming to be royalty. So that is where the bully aspect comes in, and the first like 3 to 4 books is really like a bully romance and definitely enemies to lovers. These guys hate each other. Like the celestial heirs make the Vega's life a living hell. Like they are absolutely horrible. And then they slowly realize that their motivations for like wanting to gain control are like aligned, and it really shifts towards the ends of or the last few books. But the first few, very enemies to lovers, and I was living for it. I absolutely love a couple of the couples in this book. They're perfection, and I need them to get an HEA at the end of the series or I will revolt. But anyway, if you have not read the Zodiac Academy yet, I highly, highly recommend. All right, so this next book, I really debated adding to this video just because there's a lot of conversations being had if this book is actually enemies to lovers or if it's something else. Personally, I believe it's enemies to lovers because I don't really think it fits any other category. So we have Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I gave this book 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I don't think it's quite worth the amount of hype that it received. However, it was a really fun time, and it's probably going to be a new favorite fantasy romance series for me if the second and all the other books are as good as this first one. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the story, we are following Violet Sorrengail, and she grows up believing that she is going to become a scribe. However, her mother, who is a dragon rider general, tells her that she's actually going to become a dragon rider like the rest of her family or die trying. So most of this book is just following Violet as she's in this war college, learning to ride a dragon, use powers, and then all the cadets are trying to kill each other for some reason. So personally, I say enemies to lovers because Violet grows up fearing this group of people that she ends up having a relationship with towards the end of the book. I don't want to give too much away. Obviously, I kind of did, but I feel like most people know what happens throughout this book. But I would say it's enemies to lovers. Violet is fighting the fact that she is attracted to this person. It is always questioning his motivations because she believes that he is her enemy. That is how she has been brought up. So despite the fact that he doesn't actually do anything to imply he is her enemy, she thinks he is her enemy. So that is why I added it to this list. It's fine if you don't agree, totally okay. But overall, I love this book and highly recommend that you guys check it out. And next up, we have Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerri Maniscalco. So this is the first book in a 3-book YA fantasy romance series. This first book has a very heavy Italian influence. I absolutely love the characters and the enemies to lovers vibe. I will say, as I progressed through the series, I started rating the books lower and lower. So I didn't enjoy the series as a whole, but this first book was really fun. So we are following Amelia. Her family and herself are witches that actually live in secret amongst humans. So after the death of someone very important to Amelia, she decides that she is going to try to solve the murder. And although she's having a lot of trouble solving it, she realizes that there is someone who can help her. So Amelia decides to summon a prince of hell, and the prince that emerges is Wrath. Now, this is enemies to lovers. These two full-on hate each other and would kill each other without any issue. And that's what I loved about this, is that they're drawn to each other, but also can't stand each other. Like, they just hate each other so much. And I loved it. I love, like, the tension between them where they had these, like, aggressive moments that kind of turned into, like, longing. It was really, really well done. So I highly recommend if you're looking for a YA fantasy that has the enemies to lovers vibe. And last up, we have Gleam by Raven Kennedy. So this is the 3rd book in the Plated Prisoner series, which is an adult fantasy romance. Now, this being the 3rd book, I really can't get into exactly what happens, but this is the book where the enemies become lovers. But if you're unfamiliar with the Plated Prisoner series as a whole, it is a very loosely based King Midas like reimagining. We are following RN, and she is King Midas's gilded pet. So Midas is able to turn anything he touches into solid gold, and he has gold-touched RN. So she is solid, or not solid gold, but she is gold, and she pretty much just stays in a cage in Midas's castle just to be shown off. Like, she really has no autonomy. She really doesn't care about herself at all. She only cares about Midas and Midas being happy, and is just very subservient towards Midas. So the first book is very frustrating because it is told from RN's point of view, and you just want her to realize the situation she is in, and she does not for a very long time. But when she does, it is so satisfying. But overall, I'm obsessed with this series and cannot wait for the last book to come out. I hope it's amazing. The last book, the 4th book that has been released, ended in a crazy kind of cliffhanger. So I've been waiting for the 5th book for a very long time. But anyway, if you have not checked out the Plated Prisoner series yet, definitely do so. Alright guys, those are some of my favorite fantasy romances that feature the enemies to lovers trope. Please let me know down in the comments below, what is your favorite enemies to lovers story? And like I said before, this is a collab, so make sure to check out everyone else's videos linked down in the description below. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye!